Right. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. We have a lot of content to share today, and I want to make sure that we get to all of it, and I will leave some time for questions at the end. So this first slide says your most important book marketing investment. But before I dive too deeply into that, I do want to tell you that there are some caveats to this. If you are about to market a book and you don't yet have a website, then getting a website is your most important book marketing investment. If you are getting ready to launch a book and you have not yet, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would prioritize above what we're about to talk about. I think the website is the most important thing, and this is the second most important thing. But the reason why I say it's the most important book marketing investment is because you need to have a website for all of your content marketing and influence building efforts, and not only for the book launch alone. So I want to tell you that I also think that this is more important than hiring someone to help you with your book launch. And since I run an organization that depends upon me having people hire me to help with their book launch, you can know that this advice comes from just the purest place of, I really do believe this is the best way you can spend any money that you might have in marketing your book. So as we dive in, yes, websites are important. Deborah, exciting to hear that you want to get a book out this year. Amazing. Okay, so let's dive in. And I have a lot of pictures for today's webinar, and I'm not going to keep the slides up the whole time, but this is a picture of my books when they landed in my office. And so spoiler, the most important investment that you can make in marketing your book is getting your book into people's hands. And I know that as I say that, it comes from a place. I was fortunate enough to get 250 free copies of my book from my publisher to use for promotion. Now that said, getting those books out does cost money as it relates to shipping. So if you are an author on a budget, then what I would say is, you want to keep your budget in mind, but any budget that you have, the best way to get people talking about your book, excited about your book, wanting to learn from you as an author is to get your book into people's hands. So I wanted to share this picture. And if at all possible, it's helpful to get your books out into the world before your launch date. So typically, if you have a traditional publisher, you can ask your traditional publisher about their publishing timeline or schedule. So in the case of my book launched on April 19th, and we got these first print, finished, real copies of my book into the office around March 9th. And that's really wonderful because it gave us a chance to get the books out so that people could read the book and be prepared to review the book during launch week. So if you are self-publishing, there is a workaround for this. You can print copies prior to getting your book up on an online retailer and distribute those pre-publication copies to your people. Now, there are some traditional publishers who do have tighter timelines. Some hybrid publishers may have tighter timelines. And in this case, you can negotiate for the opportunity potentially to share what we call like an e-galley or a PDF of your book in advance of launch. But I don't think that's any substitute for actually giving away print copies of your book once you have them available. So as we go throughout today's webinar, I want to share with you the approach that I took and really share the details of that with you. And then, like I said, I'll leave some time at the end for questions. And I am aware that this is not any small investment. In the next few weeks, I hope to release a new free ebook that I call the most important investment you can make in book marketing. It's a bonus chapter that we're going to format to go with my book. It's not quite ready yet, but it will have more detailed content than I'm going to be able to give on today's webinar. So I encourage you to keep your eyes open for that free chapter. It will be coming soon. Okay, so the most important investment that you can make is to give away as many books as you can. And I divide the group that you want to think about in terms of giving your book away into 3 categories based on what you think these people can and will do to help you get the word out about your book. And these are the 3 categories that I used in thinking about my own book. I will tell you that we ended up distributing more than 400 advance print copies of my book before my launch a couple weeks ago. And I would do it again and again and again. I feel like it's the best money that any author can spend. So the first group of people that we sent the book out to are those people who endorsed my book and then anyone mentioned in the book. And I have lots of stories in my book. And so that ended up being a pretty long list. Also, I had several pages of acknowledgments. So anyone who was mentioned in the acknowledgments of my book also went on this initial list. So for endorsers, for anyone mentioned in the book, and for anyone who you acknowledge who's been an important part of your journey. For us, I think this ended up being about 100 people in that first list. And for those people, I did reach out to them personally. And what we did to make kind of the administration of it a little bit easier is we used a form in our CRM, which is HubSpot, but you could also use a Google form if you don't have a robust CRM. And we did that to ensure that we would be sending the books to people's correct addresses. And so for that initial mailing, we did send those emails out one at a time and we personalized them because I feel like that personalization really makes a big difference as it relates to getting people's engagement and involvement with your launch. So that's the first group of people. And the thing that you can expect from that first group of people is that they will be invested in your book. If they've endorsed your book, then they believe that there's value in it. If they're mentioned in your book, then they have a reason to want to share your book with others. And this would be for nonfiction only, obviously. But, if they're mentioned in your book, they would want to let people know, hey, I'm in this new book. Read the story about me in this book. Like, it's very flattering, I think, to people to be included. And for endorsers as well, if they've likely been an important part of your journey, that you would mention them in the acknowledgments, if they've been an important part of your journey, then they may be people who are willing to help you. And so I put this category of people kind of in the bucket of, you can expect these people to help you launch your book. For friends and family, I also created a list of those people that I wanted to get the book to, but my expectations for their participation in sharing my book was a lot lower. You would hope that your friends and family would be willing to help share your book or whatever. You don't necessarily want your family members, especially if they share your last name, to write an Amazon review of your book because it's a little bit sketchy. So for this group, I have a really light touch, but we definitely included those people on our distribution. And then the third category of people you want to think about is what I call a launch team or a street team. And if you are familiar with what a launch team is, could you go ahead and tell me that in the chat? And in the event that you don't know what it is, I can go into more detail. But typically a launch team is people where you have a very specific ask around, I'm going to give you an advanced copy of my book, and here are the ways I'd like you to help me support the marketing of my book. So it is kind of a situation in which it's like, there is a very strong expectation that people will participate. Yes, Catherine, who's here, knows what a launch team is. Catherine, thank you for your amazing support of my book launch. And for others of you on the call who are part of my launch team, I'm deeply grateful for the ways that you have helped. So as it relates to a launch team or a street team, there's a wide range of how you might go about doing this. I know that there are some more well-known established authors who will make it absolutely contingent. So they'll say, hey, join my launch team. I'll get you an advanced copy of my book, but I require you to pre-order and prove that you pre-ordered to be on my launch team. And typically you can really only do that if you're a big, well-known author. For a first-time author or someone who's, newer, smaller network, it's not likely that you're going to get people who will say, well, of course I'll help you. And I'll pre-order and, whatever. So I tried to do this a little bit loosely with my launch team in that we did request that people consider pre-ordering my book. If you listen to the way that I'm hedging my language, we request that you consider to pre-order, but we did not ask for any proof that someone pre-ordered, nor did we make that a requirement. Now, typically when we go out to create a launch team, we do say that people are going to get a free copy in exchange for an honest Amazon review, social sharing, or sharing the book in some other way, maybe through an email list or a blog post. But as we do that, one of the expectations that we have is that only about 10 to 40% of those people will actually follow through on their commitments. And, we've watched this over 150 plus book launches, and it's pretty common, people, they get sick, like, this week I'm sick, or, they have an illness in their family, or they have some other commitment that pops up. So as you think about giving away as many books as you can, typically the advice that I will give authors is to think about how many Amazon reviews you want in the first month after your book is published, and then multiply that number by 3 or 4. And then you'll know how many books you want to get into people's hands in advance of launch to get that early momentum of Amazon reviews, which are really important social proof and credibility building for a book. And, if people do an Amazon review, it's likely that they also will share your book on social media. They'll get your book out in other ways. And so that's a good way of working with it. However many people you want to participate actively in your launch, give away 3 to 4 times as many books as that. So in the case of my book, and I mentioned this, I think, a few moments ago, between the group of endorsers and people mentioned in the book, family and friends, and my launch team, we ended up distributing about 400 copies. And, I'm not shy about telling you the financial implications of a decision like that. And I realize that not everyone has the freedom or the blessing or the benefit or the budget to be able to do that. We did the math on our distribution of books for my launch, and not counting the team's time, in gathering addresses and all that stuff, not counting my time in personalizing and signing books and all the things that I did, the dollar amount associated with the mailing, keeping in mind that I got my first 250 copies free. I got my next 150 copies at a discount as an author. If you think about the collateral that we sent, which I'll share some pictures of in a moment, if you think about, the letters we printed, it was over $6,000 for this investment. Now, nonfiction authors who are investing in a book launch might invest many multiples of that over the course of their campaign. However, in my opinion, that first investment is the most important, because your books are seeds and you need people to read your book in order to get excited to share it with others. So a few pictures. So this is a picture of the collateral pieces that we sent with my book. They ended up, if we looked at the per piece price for each of the collateral items that we sent out, the per piece price added up to about $1 per package. So we created a bookmark, we created a sticker, we created also a postcard to celebrate our company's 10-year anniversary. And then as you can see, there's like a printed letter, and we made those personal depending upon what group we were sending to. And I personalized them some. I didn't personalize them a lot. I did hand sign everyone, and we put them all in a color coordinated envelope. You can see that behind the collateral. It was yellow. It was pretty. If you got one of these packages and you thought it was pretty, or like it had an impact opening it besides just to have a book in the envelope, you could tell me that in the chat. I think there are a few of you here who might have gotten one of my packages. The other thing that I did is the other item that we printed, and the other thing that we did is we put signed book plates into the books as we sent them. This one is inscribed to one of my team members, Isabel, Izzy. So yeah, so that was another, investment that we made to get the book into people's hands and have it feel really personal. With books I'm sending out these days, I'm hand signing most of them. I don't know if people would have liked that better. I liked the sticker because it was branded and coordinated and also carried a message with it. All right, so this is what the kind of packaging process looks like. And I wanted to share this because, and thanks for all the comments. You guys liked it when you received it. Yay, that makes me happy. It's not a small thing in terms of the time investment. So if you're an author considering making an investment in getting many, many copies of your book into the world before it launches, you just want to think about the fact that you not only need to consider the money investment, but also the time investment. A couple of quick notes. We always send priority mail. We do that because media mail, even though it's cheaper, doesn't get the book quickly enough to our launch team members. And, part of the deal is we want our launch team members to have the book soon enough that they can read the book to leave a review at launch. So, some of the packages actually had a sticker on the outside, and a funny story about the reason some of them had a sticker and some of them didn't. Our first batch of book plates had a typo on them. And so we cut them in half and we put half the sticker on the outside so that we could make some lemonade from our lemons. And that was fun. for those packages that we had those, but we didn't have it for all of them. I will tell you that we use a utility called Pirate Ship, and Pirate Ship does slightly discount the cost of USPS for priority mail. So if you're looking into, sending out a lot of your own book, you would do well to look at Pirate Ship. And we print the labels, we get the envelopes delivered from the post office to our office, and that makes it faster. But certainly you want like kids' hands, you want an assistant's hands, you want someone else's hands, because even though I personally signed all the letters and book plates, there's still like a lot of other work involved in getting books out to people. And that's just the final picture. So I'm going to stop sharing slides for a minute. I have a few slides at the end. But let me think about what else I want to share with you. And if you have any questions about all of this, let me know. I would say that, one of the things that's important is that if you're mobilizing people on a launch team, you need to also think about your ongoing communication with them via email. So I mentioned that we sent personal emails to all the kind of endorsers, friends, family, and then we planned 2 other emails that we personally sent to those groups to mobilize them on behalf of my book. And then, for people who signed up for the launch team, those people on the launch team were part of like an automated email sequence where everyone did get the same email. Part of, being a part of a launch team, I think, is that you realize that you're going to get grouped in for communication. Now, I would say, there might have been people on my launch team that had I reached out to them personally, they might have gotten involved or engaged with my book in some other different way. And, at the end, honestly, it's kind of overwhelming, the communication coming through, the people posting on social media, all of the launch stuff is a lot. So if you're thinking of doing this, you want to plan in advance. We wrote some of that communication in advance. And I had hands-on help of people actually in my email sending out those personal notes, just to make it go smoother and faster for me. So the most important investment that you can make as you're approaching marketing your own book is to get as many books in people's hands as you can. And I'm curious if you have any questions about that, any comments, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. There are obviously lots of different ways that you can invest in marketing your book. And they're all important, and it takes kind of a concerted effort to do it all. And it's not really just one thing only. But if I could only do one thing, this is the thing that I would do. Maybe you're curious about the results of it. I mentioned that we multiply by 3 or 4. Yep. Cassandra has a question. Have you reached your target number of reviews on Amazon? The answer is not yet. However, it's only been 2 weeks yesterday, and we are up to 72 reviews, and we got most of them really, really quickly. We got, close to 70 within a week, maybe. Aubrey, I don't know if you can type in the chat. I don't remember, but we've only had a few trickle in since then. We do have a follow-up email going out to our launch team tomorrow. So the launch team ended up being about 280 people, and 70 out of 280, that is about a fourth. And Aubrey's saying we had 60 to 65 in the first week. One of the things that often happens in the first week when a book comes out is an author might be really frustrated that the reviews seem slow to come in. And what I noticed and what I learned, because it was my book this time, is that it took several days for many of the reviews to be approved by Amazon. So just know that you have to be patient. And yes, John Gordon is one of those people who has a bigger name, and he sent out digital books to his launch team and then asked them to pre-order. Did you have to prove that you were pre-ordering the book, Brenda? And I apologize. We had to make a judgment call about whether I should do this webinar sick or reschedule, and I decided to do it sick. So I apologize. I'm not at my best. I feel like I'm about to sneeze on all of you, but good thing that those germs do not spread through the internet, huh? We will always remember this webinar for that reason. All right, I'm trying to think about what else I can share with you of value on this topic. there are a few ways to figure out how many books to send out. Like I said, you could figure out how many books to send out based on the number of reviews. You think I'm recovering? Thank you, Rose. I'm recovering. Yay. You could do it based on the number of reviews you want in the first month. However, if you do the math on that and you can't financially afford to do that, then you could also come at that a different way. So you could think about, okay, how much money do I have to spend on books and postage? And then from there, you could build a budget of how many books to get out. Another thing to keep in mind is if you're working with a traditional publisher, they may have some other ways for you to get your book out to people. I mentioned e-galleys. So for my book, we were able to distribute some pre-pub copies through Edelweiss, which is a platform that delivers e-galleys of a book. There's another one called NetGalley. What I have found is that people who are not super tech savvy or who are not really familiar with those tools, they're not really going to want to use those tools to get your book, which is why I have a bias about the print copy, because when the print copy, gets to your house, there's that kind of like physical experience of like, I'm receiving a book. Oh, look, the author signed it. Oh, look, the author gave me a sticker. Like it's small, but it's memorable and significant. Yeah, I definitely recommend, if at all possible, that you send the print copies. But again, my publisher did have some audiobook codes available. And so one of the things that we've done post-launch is for those people who really prefer audiobook, we've been trying to get those free audiobook codes into people's hands so that they can listen to the book, and also potentially contribute to share the book post-launch with others. So I have a few things I want to share with you as we wrap up today. I'm looking for questions in the chat, and I certainly, here's a question. Okay. So Catherine has a question that came through, and you all can't see it, but I'll share it if that's okay. She has a question regarding associated merchandise. So Catherine says she doesn't have a big following for the book yet, but the title is catchy, Driving Pink, and the topic has a broad audience, breast cancer. And so she wonders about the idea of using merch to drive interest in the book. I think it's definitely worth exploring. And certainly you want to brand the book with the cover and the colors. I have invested in merch at different times for different campaigns. I still think ultimately the value of the merch is the value of the pictures of the people with the merch and them sharing it with others. So if you can get people excited about it, if you have shirts or mugs or whatever it is that people would take a picture of and share, that's what really gets momentum to spread a message bigger, not like just the fact of having the merch, which I'm sure you probably knew that too. And if the merch is eye-catching enough, typically then people will want to get the merch, and then they can find out about the book as a result. So I can see how that could be a way of going about this. Now that said, Catherine, we do have a client, and I'm not sure if I should mention her or not, but she did a really big thing with setting up a store with t-shirts and bags. And I thought the title and the messaging was catchy and the design was catchy, but I don't know that it really took off. So I would do kind of like a minimum viable product approach, where you do one merch item first that you invest in and you see how it catches on before you spend a lot of money to design a lot of different pieces. All right, so before we part ways today, I do want to share a few opportunities with you. The first one is, if you've been around a while, you might know that my book was published by Barrett Kohler Publishers, and every year Barrett Kohler Publishers and the BK Author Organization has an event. It used to be in person, and this is our third, 2020, 21. Yeah, this is our third year in a virtual only format. And I want to invite you to join me. I am not only facilitating the event, I also have a session that I'm leading. And I don't know what else. I'm project managing the event. It's going to be super fantastic. It's June 8th and 9th. It's 2 days of like 6 or 7 hours of training. The price is not very big. We actually also have a coupon code for you today, exclusive, because you're listening to this webinar. And Aubrey's going to put that coupon code into the chat, as well as the link where you could register. And Brenda, who's on this webinar, is also a member of the committee and has been helping to shape the content. So I'm going to do some name dropping. Pam Slim. Pam Slim has been helping authors and consultants and coaches and sharing their content with the world for a long time. Her book, The Widest Net, won a Porchlight Business Book Award, and she's one of our keynote speakers. She's phenomenal. We also have Natalie Nixon, who's a creativity expert. Her book has done really, really well, published by Barrett Kohler. She's our other keynote speaker. We just have a great lineup of amazing presenters. I would love to have you join me for this upcoming event, Cutting Through the Noise to Sell More Books. Would love to see you there. I also have coming up later this summer and fall more opportunities for you to learn from me exclusively at our Reach More Readers workshop. We have done 3 workshop cohorts already, and what's most powerful is the relationships that those cohorts build and learning from each other and just the quality of people that these events have been attracting. I would love to see you at one of our upcoming dates. Also, if you have not yet gotten my book, it is now available. This is the first time I've done a book marketing webinar where my book was actually available. It's available in paperback, audiobook, and ebook. And when you buy any one of those formats of my book, there's a QR code that takes you to a free course. And the free course has more than 50 lessons for you to dive deeper on the topics in the book. So I think that's all for now. If we're not already connected on social media, I would encourage you to find and connect with me. I would love to interact with you. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Aubrey, thank you for all those links. Hope some people will take advantage of joining the BK Nonfiction Book Marketing event. It's, amazing, and the people are amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I'm part of it either. I thought that too before I was as involved as I am right now. So thanks again for being with me.